You are now listening to The Perfect Prana with Kyah Ann.
What's poppin'? What's good? You're listening to The Perfect Prana Show. I'm Kyah Ann, your host, a yoga practitioner, enthusiast, instructor, flexologist, and a girl who's very happy and blessed to be here with you all today. If you love yoga, this is the perfect place to be. And if you do not love yoga, this is still the perfect place to be, because I have a lot in store for you all between the yoga news, where I talk about what's going on in the world of yoga, Yoga Hills, where I bring on a very special guest and speak to them about their practice, and the yoga theme, where we've been talking concepts and I've been sharing asanas to go along with those concepts. But before we get into all of that, let's center ourselves. Let's take this moment to go inward, to focus on our prana. Prana translating to breath, as in the breath of life, our life energy force, our chi. There are a lot of different translations, so let's focus on that. So no matter where you're at, no matter what you're doing, you're sitting on the couch, you're walking in the park, you're driving in the car, you're laying in the bed, take this moment to create a nice line of energy from your tailbone to your crown, so breath can effortlessly move through you. Think about lifting your chest, creating space between your shoulders and your ears, and slightly tucking your chin. Notice your breath without controlling it. No matter what breath you're on, go ahead and push out all the air, no air left behind, and start a new breath cycle with me. Inhale through your nose, filling up all the way, and at the top, take another sip of breath, and hold in this prana. Exhale forcibly, pushing out all the air. With me, inhale through your nose, filling up to your collarbone, holding at the top, maybe taking another sip of breath. And then exhale forcibly, sighing out the air, blowing out the air. One more breath with me. Inhale, filling all the way up, letting the energy travel to the crown of your head, expanding your rib cage, expanding your belly. And then exhale, sigh, do whatever you need, expelling all the breath, open mouth exhale. Let your breath come back to a steady rhythm. And let's get on with the show. Yoga news. Renowned yoga instructor Sharath Jois dies after suffering heart attack while hiking in the U.S. Sharath Jois is the grandson of Patty B. Jois. Patty B. Jois popularized Ashtanga yoga. He worked with many people around the world. He was on a tour in the U.S. and he had a workshop and classes scheduled for later in November. He was 53 years old, and unfortunately he passed away of a heart attack. On the day of his death, he had taught a low-intensity version of Ashtanga yoga that he had recently developed called the Active Series to instructors from around the world at a seminar at the University of Virginia. That afternoon, he went on a hike with around 50 students. He was walking with the group and he was getting fatigued, so he sat on a bench and he later fell off of it. Some students attempted to use CPR, but when the medical workers got there, they pronounced him dead. He is survived by his sister, his mother, his father, his wife, and 2 children. So he had a lot of love in his life. I'm immediately going to go into my other story now, which is not a news story, but it is very personal to me. It's terrible news to me, and it's related to this. Unfortunately, Sharath is not the only yogi that we've lost this past week. Dr. Michaela Turner, she was actually on episode Prana 1.5. So she was on my show about a year ago, and I'm so grateful that she was in the beginning and just how supportive she was of me. I had her as a teacher a few times in my childhood, so she was actually my introduction into yoga. And I'm sad to hear her go. I was not expecting this news. She was diagnosed with cancer at the end of October, and we're halfway into November, and she recently just passed away. I was very shocked and devastated to hear this news because, again, she was such a sweet lady. I interacted with her. I literally had her on the show about a year ago, and she was just so helpful because, trust me, finding people to be on this show is actually hard. It's harder than you know, let's just say that. And I feel like she even donated to my yoga teacher training fund. But she's just been so supportive of me and what I'm doing. And I mean, literally since I was a child. I've always remembered her to be a welcoming, friendly person. And I've been going through her Facebook and some of the memories people have been sharing on her Facebook. So I'll definitely be posting the episode that we did together, which was Prana 1.5. And then I'll also be posting this episode because I am dedicating this episode to her. There are not a lot of people that I've personally known that have died. I mean, look, I know of people that died, but there's just not a lot. I'm sure there are other people that have had way more experiences with people dying. Not me. It's not something I'm used to. And if I'm being honest, it's kind of scary for me, losing people that I personally know. This is one thing, especially because, I wasn't super close to Dr. Michaela Turner. I'm so grateful for how supportive she's been to me, but I'm more so scared of losing people that are super close to me. And I can only imagine how her loved ones are feeling. If she has grandchildren, if she has a spouse, if she has siblings, her family is probably feeling grief about this, rightfully so. But I did have some thoughts come up about this. It's crazy that we've lost 2 yogis, but I mean, is it really? The first thought when I read the story about Sharath, I thought, whoa, like he was only 53 and he had a heart attack and he's a yogi. Like, how is that possible? How do you die of a heart attack at 53? You practice all this yoga, you do all these breathing exercises. I'm like, surely you're a healthy person and surely that won't happen to you. Well, I mean, I don't know what his lifestyle was like, really. I don't know what risk factors he had going on, if any. Maybe he had some, maybe he had nothing. And then I also thought with Dr. Michaela Turner, like, she's a yogi, she practiced yoga, but again, I don't know her lifestyle. I don't know what risk factors she had going on. I don't know what could have caused that or why that happened to those people. But I did have the thought of like, wow, yoga didn't save them. But I had to check myself because I'm like, yoga won't save me either, and it won't save you. death is inescapable. It's something that's going to happen to everyone at some point. Now, why do I practice yoga? Why do I do anything at all for my health and wellness if I'm just gonna die anyways? And I've had this thought before too, like a long time ago when I was immature. And I guess that's just to make the life that I have right now the best quality I can. I'm sure if you'd asked Sharath Jois, and I'm sure if you asked Dr. Michaela Turner, they would both reflect on their life and have no regrets about the fact that they practice yoga. I'm sure that took nothing away from them. Even though they've passed on and they went through an inevitable process that we're all going to go through, I'm sure that they don't regret it. For the moments that they have lived, I'm sure yoga made those moments a lot better versus not having this beautiful practice. Ideally, I do want to live a long life, but I have to be content no matter what happens, because you never know. You never know what could happen. Again, even, for me, that's a scary thought. But I had to check myself and realize that a yogi dying is not the reflection of a regular yoga practice. Even if the last moments of their life they were feeling fatigue and feeling tired and drained and sick, a good portion of both of their lives they were practicing yoga, they were feeling energized, they were helping people. My condolences to their loved ones, and I'm grateful for both of them and the impact that they've had on the yoga world. I've never crossed paths with Sharath Jois, but again, I'm sure he was helping a lot of people through the practice of yoga. He was teaching a lot of people, and he was carrying an amazing legacy of Ashtanga yoga. That practice has influenced most of the yoga practices in America. So thank you to him, and then also thank you to Dr. Michaela Turner for everything that they've done for this beautiful practice of yoga. Yoga heals. Ashley. We have another Ashley on the show, but this Ashley has been practicing yoga for about 13 years, and she's been a certified yoga teacher for a little bit more than a year now. Her mission is to empower Black people, yes, Black people specifically, with the knowledge of yoga. This discussion pairs perfectly with the depth of this episode, so let's get on with the conversation. Cool. Hello, Ashley. Thank you for coming onto the Perfect Prana show. I'm so blessed to be able to connect with you and have this conversation with you. First thing I would like to ask you, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well myself. The first thing that I ask every single guest that comes onto the show is their background with yoga, of course. So, when you started practicing yoga and why you still practice yoga today.
Okay, so I just came from like a women's retreat and they told me that my tears are symbols of strength. So if I cry, I cry. If someone else cries, oh well. 'Cause something else they told me is that your story is someone else's survival guide. So I'm still like all on that Sister Hill vibe. But my journey to yoga is very ugly. It is very ugly. It is not pretty at all. I started it, I think, in high school just to get like a credit, like a PE credit. So I was like, okay, whatever. Then when I got in college, I did the same thing for a PE credit and I liked it and I kept up with it because it was free, essentially, as long as my student loans paid for it. But then it's like my grandma started getting sick and we knew she was getting to the last of her days. And I was like, okay. And then she told me that if you don't use your body, you're going to lose your body. And so what I started doing was trying out so many different workouts. At this point, like Zumba was really hot. So I started doing Zumba. I started doing like the Dance Revolutions, like with my brothers and stuff, like just so much stuff trying to find something for me. And then I landed on yoga and I really liked it because I was like, oh, why did I put this down? I don't know, but I had put it down. And so fast forward a few months, my grandma passes away. And so I completely stopped. It just completely cut off my practice and I started binge drinking and it got really, really dark, really, really fast. Within 6 months, my mom started getting sick of her mom passing away. She got sick. And doctors were running like 1,000,001 tests, could not figure out what it was. They eventually landed on it being lupus. And so we were like, okay, nobody in our family has it or anything. And so when they diagnosed her with that, it was so severe and so advanced that a lot of the treatments were not working at all for her. So within 3 months, like my mom was like having a tube down her throat and everything. And so one of my friends suggested that I go try out yoga. And I was like, okay, let me go here and do yoga. So I go to a yoga studio and I feel my phone like blowing up or whatever, because this is like before Apple Watches and people weren't really sticklers about us not having our phone in gyms. And I'm not worried about it. I walk out of the gym and my dad's like having a conference call with me and all my siblings telling us that the doctor is saying that my mom will not be able to live or breathe on her own without the machine. And something my mom and my grandma both told us like days prior to them being on their deathbed, for lack of a better word, is that if it comes to that point, they're done. That's their way of letting us know that they're done. They don't want to be here. They don't want to be a vegetable, nor do they want to be a burden for us. So we all knew what was coming, but my dad wanted that verbal confirmation from me and my siblings. None of us can get it. My brother, he ends up taking care of everything because he was the person that was there. He was like, don't worry about it. I got it. And so for me, like I said, I started binge drinking when my grandma was there. So then when my mom passed away, I just went hard so much more. And I think maybe a couple months later, I was like, I got to stop this shit because it's not doing anything for me. And me being in that yoga class, when I got that news from my mom, I sort of saw it as a way that my foremothers were talking to me from the other side as this is what you need to do. And so for me doing that and listening to them, I don't know if it's them, I don't know who it is, but I'm saying it's them, them telling me this is what I need to do. I just started back doing it. And during COVID, I was like, okay, maybe I should be a teacher because that was like a lifelong dream of mine. And my boyfriend was like, do that shit. So I did it and I've been sticking to it ever since.
Wow. Now you make me wish there was a visual component. Well, I mean, okay, let me just say something.
Yes,
Thank
for sure.
you so much for being so open and willing to talk about this. I mean, on just my little podcast,
Oh, it's big. The delusion
no.
gets you to a lot of places. Your podcast is the hottest thing out when it comes to wellness studio. So
But
throw it out there.
no, thank you so much for being so open and just being able to share that. And then also just being able to be in the place where, like, yeah, it's okay to cry. And
Hmm.
like you said, your tears are really a sign of strength. Sometimes we go through life and things really hurt. And I still have to go through this to this day where, like, man, my feelings are really hurt. I feel some sort of grief and sadness or just heartbreak, but it's just like, at least I can feel.
Yeah.
And, I'm like sitting here, I want to cry with you
Girl,
almost.
cry. Let those tears
You
come.
said let those tears out. I'm a crier. I'm really just happy that even I can feel that with you and that
Mhm.
even you telling your story can make me cry. Like, wow, I'm so blessed to feel and to feel so deeply and to also just be okay with feelings and then be okay with expressing those feelings. And
Yeah.
I love that you're in that same place too.
Something else I have to say too, like I'm not gonna ask you your story. It's your podcast. You're interviewing me. But something that I was talking to one of my friends on the retreat is that it's so interesting that every person of color their path to get to yoga is so ugly. It is so ugly. And so that's why sometimes you will see POCs, we take it on in a different light than what we will see people who have a more Western mindset, because it's not just a workout for us. We are a living embodiment of what yoga is. And that's the way that you're truly supposed to practice it. But it's never pretty. And I'm an empath. So anytime somebody tells me their story, I'm crying right there with them. So I get it.
No, for real. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm about to cry.
Mm,
I pulled up my questions and I was doing a little bit of multitasking, but
mhm,
then you really started getting into your story, and I just got so locked in.
mhm,
I was like, what? Like, I wish you knew how just locked in I got with
mhm.
like, oh my gosh. I'm so sorry that you had to like go through all of that, but I am really happy that you were able to still find this yoga practice. You're literally the epitome, or just like the perfect example of what this segment on the show is called, is yoga heals. And
Mhm,
I bring on guests and I want to talk about how yoga has healed them, and
mhm,
why they're so faithful to this practice. So yeah, you said it was a lifelong dream to be a
mhm.
teacher. um More so kind of like, why? Like what?
Because I think in my eyes, when I was looking at yoga, I was like, oh, if I'm a teacher, that means that I have like, I, I don't know if you watch Dragon Ball Z, but you know how they power up and it's like they've elevated, they become Saiyan and Super Saiyan and keep going and keep going. I was like, if I'm a yoga teacher, I am Super Saiyan times 10 when it comes to my healing. So for me, in my mind, it was like, oh, I'm a Black American. So there's a lot of trauma, intergenerational trauma. So I'm like, I got to deal with all of that before I get there. And I have that peace of mind and I have that healed spirit. But as I've been practicing yoga, I'm like, it's a journey. It never stops. Even when I get to whatever place I think I need to be, guess what? There's going to be something else that's going to be like, oh, I didn't even know that was traumatizing. So it's a journey. And so for me, realizing that as I got older, it was like, why can't you be a teacher? Why can't you do it? So it's like, no, I don't have to be completely healed. I'm healing. And I'm just inviting other people to open up and do the same with me.
Man, thank you. That's something else I was going to say to your point earlier, was like, yeah, generally a lot of us are traumatized, especially people of color. I'm going to say Black people,
Hmm.
particularly. There is so much, the generational curses and things that we've gone through. I mean, sicknesses and illnesses are
Hmm.
literally killing us. You've experienced this firsthand.
Hmm.
Um, People still, I mean, just with even how the stressors that are going on today, even
Hmm.
between the news and politics and
Oh,
media, and and just
yeah.
people living check to check and barely making it off of that, and just all the hardships and the oppression that people face, and some people don't even realize that they're facing that. But you know, I will definitely say yoga is definitely a liberating practice,
Hmm.
and it does help you at least have some sense of, I want to say control, but like, yeah, you're doing what you can to live the best that you possibly can. And like your grandma said, if you don't use your body, you will lose it. And I mean, our bodies are naturally degrading. That's just something that is just going to happen with age. But how quickly does that have to happen?
Hmm.
Yeah, my body, I might naturally lose muscle as I get older, but how much do I have to lose? And do I really have to have posture like this and have my breathing restricted and have all of these issues and be on all of these medications? Does, like, is all of that necessary, or can
Hmm.
I really limit that? I would like to test it out on myself and see if I can limit it
Same,
and do the best that
same,
I can
same.
personally, because that is hell. Living with all the terrible decisions of being lazy and just not taking care of myself and treating myself poorly. that is hell. That is your own personal hell that a lot of people unfortunately have created for themselves. So it's like knowing what I know, let me do the best that I can.
I was scrolling down Pinterest earlier today, and some way, somehow, this quote came up, and I was like, let me go to the gym. It said, the way your body looks is your love letter to yourself. I was like, oh, okay. So if my body, like you said, when I get old, I'm hunched over, I can barely move, I need a walker, I need assistance with everything I do, that shows from the actions that I put into it. So I want my love letter to be beautiful. I want it to be the most amazing love ever. I want to be able to do a cartwheel, even though I can't do a cartwheel at all. I want to be able to do a cartwheel when I turn 60 if I wanted to learn how to do that. But if I'm not pouring into myself in some yoga practice or whatever wellness practice it is that you choose, then I don't know if that's going to be possible.
Yes, yes. And this kind of, reminds me of the other day that you made a post. Let me
Hmm.
tell you something. I don't read a lot of posts on Instagram. I don't, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I still am Generation Z.
Hmm.
I'm on the internet, bombarded with a ton of information, just like everybody else. But every
Hmm.
once in a while, I'll come across somebody that posts something and I'll actually read what they
Hmm.
wrote. I'll actually be interested in what they had to say. And you were speaking about the fact that you stopped talking about wellness on your account, and that
Yeah.
was something that you were originally doing and then you
Hmm.
stopped doing and then you started doing again. And I was so drawn to the vulnerability because, I might go through that sometimes too, where, I feel like I'm not posting about something, or I'm not going to talk about something because I'm not doing it and I'm not on the journey anymore. But sometimes when you come back to whatever practice or whatever you're trying to accomplish, you're like, well, I never really left the journey, Like, this is all part of the process. But could you talk about some things that you do want to speak about on the internet? Just kind of what the future looks like with your internet presence and just sharing with us.
I think something that I'm trying to do with my online presence, because I'm a millennial, so I have trouble with sticking it out. I'm like, I don't want people all in my business. I'm like, I don't need everyone to see everything that I'm doing, but I'm understanding to reach my target audience and those people who I really started doing yoga for, which in all clearness, it's the Black community, because I saw the way that it ran through my grandma. She was only 70 years old. I think that's young. I don't know about someone else, but I think that that is young. And to see her bedridden, like at that point, I'm like, I don't want that to be my goal. To see how fast my mom deteriorated in less than a year's time, it was like, that was very polarizing. And so it's like, I was like, the Black community, that is my target audience. I want to make yoga accessible to them. I want them to know that they have an outlet. Yes, life is going to always be hard. Yes, there's always going to be something, but you have everything in your power to change that. And so for me, it's one, posting consistently, two, actually speaking to my audience and not trying to be so broad that I don't ruffle any feathers or that I'm not politically correct or anything like that. No, focusing on my target market and actually having fun with it. My posts don't have to look like your post or the next person posts or the next person posts, because my practice doesn't look like that. And so just making sure that my social media looks like me. I don't need 100 million followers. I don't need that. I need the people, my tribe, to just follow me and to listen to me. And I always say, like my first yoga class, I was like, if one person shows up, I'm okay. Like if I can touch one person and they be like, oh, you changed my practice for the better, then I did what I wanted to do.
Yeah, you said this earlier. Like, I just want, to open other people up and for them to
Mhm.
be on the journey with me. We should all really try to do the best that we can to live the best quality life that we. And I mean, can you talk about why live a long life? Why is that something that is so important for you?
It's not more so a long life. I want a healthy life. And when I say healthy, one that I can do everything I want to do. Like, I don't want, and it sounds so messed up, I don't want to be that 65-year-old that's finally out here traveling because I just retired from my job and now I can do it, but I can barely move because I've been sediment and I've just been sitting at my desk all this time. I want to be healthy. I want to be healed. I want to be able to do all the things that I see other people do and yet still be in my body and look like myself. I think it's important because there's so much of this world that we don't know. And granted, we will never know a fraction of it because that's just the way that knowledge is and that's the way the world is. But I want to live a long life because I think I deserve it. I think my foremothers deserve it. I think my forefathers deserve it. I think I deserve it. And I'm happy. And I think my energy sort of draws to the people around me. So I'm able to heal people without even teaching them about yoga. We're not even teaching them about like asana, because that's what everybody think yoga is. It's just that one limb right there. But I can teach them other things. I can show them the niyamas. I can show them the yamas just on the way in which I live my life. And so, as you were saying, the yoga practice, it helps you spiritually, no matter what deity it is that you speak to, what you call them or whatever. It helps you get closer to that because it helps you meditate. It helps you learn how to quiet the mind. It helps you to stay in the moment. It helps you to realize that everything is passing. So if you're really, really practicing yoga the way that it's supposed to, you're going to get closer to your Lord. And so that I just want to embody it. Like I was saying earlier, this was a like bucket list. I'm not on my own yoga studio and be a teacher. No, I can do that right now. I am my own yoga studio, no matter what studio I'm in, and just giving that same gifts to other people.
Yes, you're right. I deserve it.
Yeah.
Period. Like we all deserve healthy life as long as that's what we choose for ourselves. That's something that, is very possible about. I love that you did bring up God or deity or your Lord or no matter who you serve. Something that really drew me to you is that, we started talking and
Yeah.
we found all these things that we had in common. And something that I found was, oh, like, we even have a background with Islam in common. And that's something that, that's something that's part of our family. So could you talk about the relationship between Islam and yoga for you?
It is so simple. And I tell my dad this all the time, but my mosque, like we had a lot of the older people who would like be praying in chairs and stuff like that. And so like when I first started, I was like, I don't want to be like that. I want to make sure I can still get down in sujood and give my praise to Allah. I didn't know, like when I was a kid and we would be saying the prayers in the head, because in Islam, you don't always recite out loud. Sometimes you, and I'm just explaining for those people who don't know, but sometimes you recite in your head and you're just following the imam. I used to be like, okay, well, Barney's coming on at 2 o'clock. But with yoga, I know how to quiet my mind and be in that moment and actually worship a little bit better. So if anything, it's helped me get closer to God because I understand stuff a little bit more and I can take the text and all the information I'm learning here and apply it there into my Islamic background, into my spirituality, and bring it to my family as well when they're accepting of it. Because just like the Black church, you always gonna have people in your family that's like, no, 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 no. So,
What are some of the ways that they think Islam and yoga are conflicting?
it's the same. And I have friends who are yoga or were yoga instructors and they're no longer yoga instructors. And they're like, yoga is demonic because it's from like an, what is it? The Bhagavad Gita, and it's, they're worshiping other deities and stuff like that. And there's only one God. That same stuff that you hear from Christians who downplay yoga, you hear from the Islamic community. And I'm sure you hear from the Jewish community as well. I just don't have anyone personally in my life that I can ask that, but you get all of that stuff. And I think it's a misconception because it's just hearsay. You're not doing the research to actually look at the text to see what are they saying. But the common thread in every religion, and I pride myself on reading, I've read the Torah, I read the Quran, I read the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita. These are books that you don't just completely consume, but you go back to over and over and over again. And the common thread in all of those, and granted, there's other religions, those are just I guess, the big three right there. The common thread is to just be a good person and lead with a good heart. And God is giving you the tools to do that. And doesn't yoga do the same thing? So it's like, I don't understand what the issue is.
Man, I mean, I've it's funny. I've had teachers that literally taught like yoga to like religious communities. They just had to take certain maybe terms out. Like instead of you can't say like prayer hands or you can't say I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. But it would just be like little nuanced
Mm-hmm.
things like that. There's like, oh, you can't say. I definitely always think it's kind of an interesting topic because I've always seen the connectedness between honestly all of these religions. And maybe the religions aren't wrong. Maybe it's just the way that people practice or interpret them and things that they might misunderstand. It's like we're all playing a game of telephone, like, you
Exactly.
know.
Exactly.
But it's like, you know, the original word might have been lost or the original meaning of the word might have been lost. But
It's
you
even
know,
so, yeah, on that same train of thought, it's even so, like, anybody that speaks another language or even has dabbled in learning another language, you know, certain words don't translate well. So you're thinking this is devil, but in their language, it's something completely different and that we don't even have in the English language, which is colonized, by the way. But it's like, so it's like, this probably isn't even translating the same way. So I don't get it, but I understand you worship how you want to worship and what feels right to you. And this feels right to me. And I feel it's getting me closer to my Lord. And I'm going to keep doing it.
yeah. And I mean, I've definitely heard maybe like somebody who's Hindu say like, oh, we have one collective conscious or something along the lines like that. And I'm like, well, isn't that the same thing as like one God or, you know, I don't
Yeah.
know. Is I have a lot of questions and I just love engaging in these discussions. I always think, no, God would probably want me to be healthy and mobile and to live a long, healthy life because at the end of the day, that's where all the fruits are, is the longer we live in this world, the more that we get to experience and just the more that we can accumulate for ourselves. You know, it's just like I don't have as much right now because I haven't lived as much. You know, the older I get, the wiser I'll be, the more wealth I'll accumulate. So, you know, the more connections I'll build with people. But I have to be alive and healthy to experience those things. So I have started kind of a new thing with my guest. Let me grab my little tin so we can. I basically have a tin and I wrote down the niyamas and the yamas on pieces of paper and at random I'm going to pick one for
Girl,
you to talk about.
you gonna mess me up. Okay.
And you could just talk about, you know, maybe how you interpret this one or how you practice this one, or if it's something that you've struggled with, that's something you can talk about. Or maybe you could talk about how you are going to implement this yama or niyama in your life. I have tapas, discipline.
Oh, child. So going back to that post that you said I just put on social media, it was full transparency. It was about me gaining weight. And so that is why I stopped. And I realized that I stopped because I was lacking that discipline. I quit my job at the beginning of the year. And for 6 months, I was just like taking a break, a mental health break. But in that time, I was just doing whatever. I didn't care. I didn't have any lower function to my day. It was just doing what I want, waking up when I wanted to. And so now I've been back working for the last 6 months or so. And it's been a struggle to find that discipline that I had. It's been a struggle to get back on course. I'm somebody that wakes up early, waking up at 5 a.m., going downstairs. I have a gym here in my place, going downstairs, working out, and then coming back up here, getting ready for work, taking my dog for a walk, coming back, journaling a little bit, reading a little bit, like all of that stuff just seems so daunting to me. And so instead, I just have not been doing it. And so now I don't know what it is. The fall, I always feel myself transition a little bit. I feel like I'm a leaf in that sense, that I'm always changing with the weather. But I feel myself like sort of wanting to do it. Like it's a desire of mine to do it. And it doesn't seem so daunting as what it did a month ago or two. And so now I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's work out for 2 hours. Let's do this in the morning. Let's go walk the dog. Let's come back. Let's go to bed early and just sit up and read a book. And so I'm finding the joy in those little things by reading something like a nonfiction or a murder mystery, which I love, or science fiction. And so reading those type of things that I'm going to be able to consume in like a couple days sitting. If I want to watch TV, watching something that I know is going to bring me joy, making sure it's no drama filled stuff. And so those little nuggets that are going to make me happy are the things that are going to help me stay disciplined. And this is just for weight loss. It also comes to, like I said, I want to post more on social media. Making my social media look like me, that's going to make me more excited, because now people who don't know me or only know me by your cyber yogi, now they're going to be like, oh, okay, I like her a little bit more. Her stuff doesn't look cookie cutter. It doesn't look like the next person. So I think for me, really to be disciplined in something, I have to see myself in it. I have to make it enjoyable. And so that's what I'm not struggling with, but that's what I'm, I guess, wrestling with right now in my life.
I am in complete agreement with you. I have to enjoy it. I don't stick to things I don't enjoy, and that's the truth. I'm glad that I have gotten to the point in life where there are some challenging things that I find like, wow, that was hard, but I enjoyed it. I literally just took a yoga class in LA and I was like, man, that was the hardest class of my life. But I was like, I loved it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Even things in my asana practice where I'm like, yeah, I keep doing this and I keep failing at it. Why do I keep doing this? I've had people ask me, like, why do you keep doing that if you keep falling over? It's because it's fun. Like, because it's fun, energizing. And it's also something that is good for me. That is
We get it, like that joy. You can't buy that in the store. Like when like headstands is something that I've been working on. When I finally get it, because like when I just get up there like for 2 seconds, I'm so excited. You cannot buy that joy in the store. So it's like that's why I keep doing it, because I know how it's gonna feel.
seriously, it's a rush. It
It
is a rush.
is.
You're like, I'm an inversion junkie.
Yeah.
Arrest me. Like, look, it just is what it is. And that is something that also helps me stick to it. Not only am I having fun and getting high off of this headstand, but I'm also building strength. I'm improving concentration. I'm building my balance and my having better body awareness. And the benefits could go on of just what asana practice can bring you, and even just keep trying to approach those challenging postures and movements in the practice when maybe even if you keep failing at it, but the fact that you're trying, it's like you're still getting the benefits. So yeah, but that's the thing about discipline. For me personally, I have to enjoy it, because if I don't, if I hate it, or if it's just maybe too challenging, I've personally have gone through my own weight gain and weight loss and weight gain, and I've yo-yoed back and forth a lot in my life. Even I got to a point where I'm like, oh, I'm at my smallest size, and and I love that, but I was doing something that was a bit too challenging for me and just hard to upkeep. Like I enjoyed it sometimes, but I was getting to a point where it's like, man, I'm dreading this. And so then I didn't stick to it. And then I went, a little bit on the other end of the spectrum.
Progress isn't made with not doing it or avoiding it. So it's like you have to like it, because that's going to make you keep coming back.
I say, you're not going to like it all the time, or you're not going to want to do it all the time. And I definitely might go through that sometimes like where I don't always want to get on my mat, but one thing is I know that it is something that I just try to make it enjoyable for myself. So
Mhm.
maybe I don't want to do something hard and strenuous that day, but I like how stretching feels. So I might just stretch in this way, or I like
Mhm.
how this movement feels. So I just might do this because it's really fun for me and I always enjoy it. Maybe I'm going to do something from my bed. I literally will do stretches in my bed when I really just don't feel like getting on my mat. So it's kind of like make it as enjoyable for yourself as possible. And you're on a different level of discipline than me because I don't know if I could enjoy waking up at 5 a.m. I just
But I go to sleep really early though. I go to sleep at like 9, 10 o'clock if I'm pushing it. So I go to sleep early, and I love that because then I get my full 8 hours. It's sometimes 9, and it feels so good.
well, yeah, I go to sleep late. See,
Yeah, see,
I'm only 22 though, so I'll get it together eventually. So of course, I do ask my guests to lead us through pranayama. So it is time for that. So yeah, just a few breaths, a few cues. It's up to
okay,
you.
I've been really, really feeling box breathing lately. So hopefully, whoever was before me on the podcast didn't do the
Oh
same
no.
thing. Okay.
Look, everybody does some, yeah, I've had a lot of box breathing. I've
Mhm.
had people literally just say inhale, exhale. I've had people give cues for posture and this and that.
Mhm.
I accept it all. So,
Yeah.
and then everybody has their own way.
That's true.
Nobody is exactly the same, even though we're doing generally the same thing, but
Mhm. So get in a comfortable seat, or if you're already sitting, just make sure that you're relaxing your muscles, relaxing your back. You're not holding any tension anywhere. And if you are, just bring your attention to that area. Let out all your stale air and inhale for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it at the top. Exhale for a count of 4. Hold it at the bottom. Inhale for a count of 4. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it at the top. Exhale, open mouth, exhale for a count of 4. Hold it at the bottom. Inhale through the nose for a count of 4. Hold it at the top. Exhale. Hold the exhale there at the bottom. Last time. Inhale through the nose. Hold it at the top. Open mouth, exhale. Hold it at the bottom. Flutter your eyes open if you close them with me. And return back to your normal breathing pattern. No matter if you're practicing your pranayama or anything, try to keep your inhales and exhales the same, because that helps you get the most benefit out of it.
Ashe, namaste, and so it is.
So it is. So it's gonna be.
If you'd like to connect with Ashley, I'll be putting her Instagram in the show notes. Stream The Perfect Prana Show on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Yoga theme. Last week's yoga theme, twisting, or yoga that helps us pivot. Very much like yoga that helps us move forward, but I wanted to share a practice that involved a lot of twisting, as that's been one of the most restorative aspects of asana for me, is working on my spinal mobility. And the concept of learning how to work with the plot twist of life is relevant to this episode, and it's honestly relevant every single day because there are always a lot of unexpected events, but we have to be able to pivot. Another concept that is important and relevant is we have to be able to move forward. So again, these are things that we can do physically, but we also have to be able to do them in the mental sense because everything is always changing, and I guess that's why it's important to remain unattached. I've had thoughts like, this whole idea of being non-attached sounds so toxic, but maybe not. Being non-attached is an art, and I think you can be unattached to something while simultaneously enjoying it and loving it and being grateful for it. Anyways, this week's yoga theme, it will be related to rest and relaxation and savasana. Honestly, with the events between us losing our yogi friends, I wanted to talk about Shavasana, corpse pose. I went back and read a little bit about it in my yoga books, Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and also Yoga the Iyengar Way. And I guess I've gained some insight between doing a little bit of reading and then also watching videos on why practice Shavasana, a little bit of the history behind it. And I'll tell you some conclusions or thoughts that came up about this particular topic. I'll start a little bit about my background and thoughts with Shavasana and rest and relaxation. I've always been a chill person, and at times I've thought, I really love to relax. Still to this day, I do. But then other times I thought, man, I love to relax too much. I wish I was more of a fiery, get up, go, energized person. A lot of times people say that my voice just puts them to sleep, and I've accepted it. I'm okay with it. I'm not really offended by that, but sometimes I don't want to do that. I don't want to have that effect. I don't want to be a sleepy vibe. Sometimes I want to be motivated and driven and just alert, and I can tap into all of those things and way more now that I'm further along in my life than when I was younger, but thought that about myself sometimes. And when I started going more into my yoga practice, I never really thought I'm doing this to relax. I'm doing this to rest, which a lot of people practice yoga for those reasons, and that's valid, and those are great reasons to practice yoga. Personally, when I first started, I wasn't necessarily doing it to relax or rest, maybe restore. I guess I still was thinking I'm doing this exercise, but it's just a little bit more relaxed when I first started getting into my fitness. It's keeping me moving, and that was my main focus. I just was like, I need to stay moving. And then there was points in my yoga practice where I never really thought about Shavasana, and I never really thought it was that important for me or for others, where I was like, I don't really know why we do this all the time. Like, what's the point? And I explored some of those thoughts. I've even taught a few classes where I'm like, seated meditation, no shavasana. Like, we need to be energized. Let's get up and do something. But you can have a shavasana and then be energized after the class. I guess it just depends on the person and the practice. But I decided to go in a little bit deeper about shavasana and why we practice it, what it is. So first, let me give you a little textbook definition on what shavasana is. Corpse pose. That's what it literally translates to. And it's actually a little controversial. Like, how is laying there just so controversial? Because it's called corpse pose, mimicking a corpse. Some people that are really religious, Christians or other religions, they might not practice yoga because of yoga poses with names like this, corpse pose. There's other terms in yoga that they might not practice yoga just because of those names. I've heard some people say, oh, if you're practicing this corpse pose, you're inviting evil spirits, or you're inviting death, or you're inviting this, or it's just all these theories and different thoughts on how yoga is evil. I'm not here to speak to that, but it's usually practiced after an asana practice, and most classes I've been to, teachers will tell you to lie still with your palms facing up, letting your feet fall however they are, your shoulders down from your ears, your eyes are closed, and they might tell you to be still. I've heard a lot of people say that shavasana is their favorite part of class, and some people might feel like, I've done all this hard work in this yoga class, I deserve this shavasana and this relaxing time. Some people hate shavasana. Some people will literally get up and leave a class during this time and they feel that it's unnecessary. I would never do that. I don't think I've ever really done that, but I never really thought too deeply about it, and I at points felt like I could take or leave this shavasana thing because, again, I thought I'm too much of a relaxed person. I need to be a get up and go type of person. I need to be energized, moving. I need to be on fire. I need fire to be up under me. But again, the deeper that I've gotten into my studies, the more videos I've watched, the more I've read, I've heard perspectives that shavasana is there so we can soak up all the benefits of our yoga practice. There was one perspective I thought was interesting, was that during a yoga practice you take in so much prana, and during your shavasana you relax and you let that prana spread all throughout your body. In my Iyengar book, it says, in relaxation, the body lies as still as a corpse and the mind is at peace. Once the posture is mastered, quietness can be called upon at will. The book also encourages to be still and to find your position and try not to move. Here's what the reflection says. The mind is changeable and subject to moods. It is affected by internal and external circumstances. When the body is still, the state of mind can be observed. Shavasana disciplines the mind to be quiet and watchful. I have at times thought to myself, What's the point of meditation? What's the point of being quiet? What's the point of being still? And I actually read in another book, The Path of Perfection, that, the point of being still is when you're doing bad or doing harm, you just need to stop doing it altogether and be still until you can do good. That was an interesting perspective for me. The Path of Perfection, he was like, if you're doing good, don't stop doing it all. But, a lot of us have to reflect and ask ourselves, are we doing good? Are the thoughts that I'm having good thoughts, or are they harmful thoughts? Am I being good to people in thoughts and in actions, or am I being harmful to people in thoughts or in actions? When I was reading that little bit about Shavasana in my Iyengar book, and then also in the other book, The Path of Perfection, I was like, let me see if Yoga Sutras has anything to say about Shavasana and why it's so important. It never mentioned Shavasana directly, but this is something that I found that I felt was kind of relevant. So Patanjali, he highlighted 9 obstacles to self-knowledge. For inference, disease, dullness, doubt, laziness, dissipation due to excess craving, etc. Then he said accompanying these distractions are suffering, frustration, restlessness, and disturbed inhalation and exhalation. So if we have these obstacles in our life, disease, laziness, delusion, lack of concentration, etc., then we'll suffer, we'll be frustrated, we'll be restless, and our breathing won't be right. I have experienced all of those things. I'm sure everybody has, though, or at least one of those issues. He continues and says, in order to prevent these obstacles from arising, you should habituate yourself to meditation upon a single principle. He was promoting meditation, basically we need to meditate. And I've always questioned, what do we need to meditate for? Do we really need to sit there and be still to meditate? And maybe we do. They say that you can meditate in any position or anywhere. Any yoga posture you do, you should be meditating. I don't care if you're in a handstand or if you're sitting down. Some people say that Shavasana is not meditation. Some people say it is, but some people say that Shavasana helps you get to meditation. Again, Iyengar said, once you master the Shavasana practice, quietness can be called upon at will. So anytime you can find quietness in your mind. Now that's speaking to me, because as relaxed as I am on the outside, on the inside, sometimes my mind is moving a mile a minute, and sometimes it's harmful the way that my mind is moving. To continue on with my findings in the Yoga Sutras that I felt were relevant to this discussion, the primal causes of suffering. He said that there are 5 primal causes of suffering: ignorance of your true self and the value of spirituality, egoism and its self-centeredness, attachment to pleasure, aversion to pain, and clinging to life out of the fear of death, which I thought was interesting because I admitted that death is a little scary. I've been taught to be sad about death, and we all have been, and it is sad. It just is, because we love each other, we're attached to each other, we have all these attachments, and not being able to experience each other ever again in life, it's actually really sad. I've always thought, how do people cope with that? Because I haven't had to cope with that too much yet. I came across the perspective that we practice shavasana to mimic death, to get over our fears of death. And even anytime I've watched a yoga class or have been to a yoga class, I've thought to myself, man, a yoga class or a yoga practice is literally like life. You arrive, you do all these hard things, you go through all these great moments, you have some successes, you have some failures, and then at the end, you die. But the nice thing about a yoga class, when I get up from my shavasana, and when a lot of people get up from their shavasana, they might feel like, wow, I'm reborn. I'm a new person now. I know I have that feeling after a good yoga practice. In this life, when you die, you might not get up again. Some people believe, you'll be reincarnated, and that's all up for debate. I'm not sure, but I know that we live now, and that when we die, that's the end of this life that we have experienced. Anyways, guess what Patanjali recommended to overcome these causes of suffering? Meditation. So, why practice shavasana? I don't know. There are a lot of different perspectives. I mean, there's actual scientific evidence that this helps regulate our nervous system, it promotes relaxation and rest, and it lowers the blood pressure. Some people say it's the most important part of a yoga practice. I can't vouch for that. I think the most important part of a yoga practice varies for everyone, but I will say I took the hardest yoga class of my life when I was in Los Angeles. I was actually happy when I got to the shavasana part. I was happy that I finished the class, and I would do it again, but I wasn't expecting that challenge, and I was challenged. So when I got to shavasana, I definitely appreciated being able to be still. Something to notice, my Iyengar book says to be cautious of shavasana if suffering depression, mental illness, or phobias. So maybe it was at points intuitive for me to be like, nah, I don't need to lie still. I need to sit up still, use my core, and concentrate on being upright. So, we all have different needs at points in our life. But that's my shavasana rest and relaxation talk. I will be sharing a yoga practice that helps us rest. I did share a practice that helped us go inward, and that was a little bit similar, but this time I will be doing it with the intention to rest and really bring the mind to stillness. Rest in peace, of course, to our yogi friends. And with that being said, the light and the dark within me bows to the light and the dark within you. Namaste.